at least one person. The attack on the packed Planet Hollywood restaurant left more than 20 people injured. A Muslim group has claimed it was behind the bombing, which it said was in retaliation for American missile attacks on Sudan and Afghanistan. Here's our Africa correspondent, Tim Hewitt.
A bomb in a crowded Cape Town restaurant tonight has raised new alarms about anti-American terrorism. Police are still investigating, but the restaurant is jointly owned by Hollywood stars Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis. And a group called Muslims Against Global Oppression has claimed responsibility. Investigators are not ruling out a link with attacks on American embassies in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam. A local radio station was told by an anonymous caller that the bomb was part of a jihad or holy war. But Cape Town is the scene of ferocious gang wars between drug dealers and Muslim vigilantes, and the bomb may have been part of their continuing confrontations. Whatever the cause, at least one person is dead and more than 20 injured. Tonight's attack in South Africa may have been part of the violence that has become so endemic here. But the fear is that it could herald the start of a terrorist fight back after last week's American bombings. Tim Hewitt, News at 10, Johannesburg.
The prosecution team investigating the car crash that killed Princess Diana tonight revealed they're still trying to establish why her driver's blood contained a higher than normal level of carbon monoxide. In a rare statement, the investigators also said they plan to wrap up their inquiry by the end of October. From Paris, here's our senior correspondent, Mark Austin.
A year on and still the investigation continues. Today's witnesses at the Palace of Justice in Paris included senior management of the Ritz Hotel, reportedly questioned about their knowledge of chauffeur Henri Paul's drink and drug taking. It's well known that the princess's driver was drunk at the time of the accident, but tonight in a rare statement the judges revealed they're still examining his blood to try and explain the abnormally high level of carbon monoxide, which can cause drowsiness and disorientation. Sinister theories aside, they're trying to decide whether it's a mistaken reading or there's any other explanation. Also still being looked into is the quality of the care the Princess of Wales received immediately following the accident. Some doctors have claimed that if she'd been taken to hospital sooner, it may not have ended the way it did. And another ongoing line of inquiry is the condition of the Mercedes car itself. A former Ritz chauffeur has already alleged the braking system was faulty, and the owner of the limousine rental company is due to give evidence to judges tomorrow. This is something the French lawyer for bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones is keenly pursuing. Today he showed me the mountain of evidence already gathered in this case and said allegations of a cover-up over the state of the vehicle and other security lapses at the Ritz are now finally being investigated.
I cannot say there was any. I don't have any evidence of it. It's only various witnesses who tend to say that. Again, we have to see if there was any or not, and if there was one, who organized it, who orchestrated it.
In response to criticism about the length of time the inquiry is taking, the judges said in their statement it was a case of international interest with widespread repercussions. They also said they'd been hampered by the evidence of so-called witnesses whose statements had ranged from the unreliable to the completely fabricated. It's believed the investigation will be complete by the end of October, but it could take many more months before the findings are made public. Mark Austin, News at 10, Paris.
The British air industry got the boost it hoped for today when British Airways confirmed it's placing its biggest ever order in
the ultimate free ride. First out of the capsule was Talgat Masabayev, who, with 207 days in space, had survived twice as long as the government of Sergei Kirienko, and he got more to laugh about. Far more controversially, next to descend was Yuri Baturin. A former crony of President Boris Yeltsin, he'd spent just 12 days in space, after his boss had promised him the trip of a lifetime, despite his limited experience. Asked on the phone if he'd felt like a passenger, Mr. Baturin sniffily replied he was a cosmonaut, while his colleague rediscovered the joys of gravity. Decked out in traditional Kazakh dress, all three were reported to be in good health, which is more than could be said for the 13-year-old Mir space station on which they stayed. There should be one more change of personnel aboard the space station, before it comes to the end of its life sometime in the summer of next year. But the problem with Russia's space program, as with so much else here, is a lack of finance. As indeed it was for the cosmonauts. For since they went into space, the value of their salaries in rubles has tumbled by a third. Mark Webster, News at 10, Moscow.
The age of the bionic body may be drawing closer after a breakthrough by Scottish scientists. They've developed an electronically operated arm, which dramatically improves the range of movement for patients. Here's our health correspondent, Helen Wright.
For 16 years, Campbell Aird has worn a prosthetic artificial limb after losing his right arm to a muscle cancer. But his life is about to be transformed. With Campbell's help, a team of Scottish researchers have developed a new electronic limb, dubbed the bionic arm, to replace his false one, which he told me has only limited use.
This is a pulley system at the back, so I flex muscles on each side of my body here, and the arm will come up. From here, there is a hand movement, which is open and close. One movement I don't have is this one here. That's very difficult.
This, though, is the future, the electronic arm, which has no such limitations. It's a world first. The forearm rotates, the wrist turns, and the hand can grip.
It gets a wee bit stiff after a night's sleep.
Now Campbell can lift his arm above his head, because uniquely it turns at the shoulder. The arm, which will be covered in a silicone skin, is made of carbon fibre. It works using a system of gears and motors. It's powered by a battery, but controlled by Campbell. Using his shoulder muscles, he can activate special sensors and switches to move the arm wherever he wants it to go. The sensors could also be linked to nerve endings and triggered by electrical impulses. Then the arm could be controlled by thought.
This prosthesis has been a major development, but it's possible that in future prosthetic arms could become even more sensitive. For example, the fingers may be able to distinguish between hot and cold, and to feel the force they're exerting on objects, and even to feel when objects slip through the fingers.
One of its inventors told me in future even more such sci-fi developments could become fact.
Science fiction possibly takes you to the realms of you know, the Terminator, or arms that are plugged in directly and are getting signals from the nerves, and maybe with regenerating batteries from, you know, or maybe something that's cooled by blood flow. You know, maybe you're talking about that type of sci-fi somewhere down the line.
The team's now trying to raise funds for further research, and they hope if trials of the arm with Campbell go well, other men, women and children will soon be able to get similar limbs on the NHS. Helen Wright, News at 10, Edinburgh.